Little Horse and Big Conversation. Welcome to Little Horse and Big Conversation, where we give them their say, let the horse guide the way. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, we have the choice, so let's give them a voice. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, Little Horse and Big Conversation.
Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the Little Horse Big Conversation podcast. You're here with me, Ross Cooper, and my co-host Amy Mitchell. And today we have another fantastic guest joining us all the way from Colorado, which seems to be a theme with these podcast appearances. We are very excited to welcome no other than the author of Sacred Spaces, Dr. Susan Fay. Susan, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. This is such a pleasure.
No, it's really exciting for us. It was quite funny actually, because Ross had said something about you a little while ago, and I said, "Oh, do you know what? I've had her book sat in my Amazon shopping basket for months. So the fact that you brought the name up, so I'm going to get it." So I got it on Audible and listened to your book, and then Ross said he'd got you on as a guest, and he's like, "Oh, this is just, this is amazing." So yeah, it's really great to have you on. And I think the things that you kind of the themes and the things that you were talking about in that book really kind of resonate a lot with how Ross and I work, and the sort of, the ways that certainly for me that I'm trying to kind of develop in my work with horses. So yeah, it's really great to talk to you.
Oh, well, great. Yes, and it's funny because that book, as I realized I wrote it 7 years ago, and it doesn't seem like it's been that long. And it's really high time I do another one, because there's things in that I think, as time goes on, we evolve and we do things differently as we start to go out and practice a lot of things. And especially me, when I was going out to try to teach people some of this, it's like, oh, I think I have to refine that or describe it in different ways. So I'm working on another book right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Is that an exclusive?
Oh, yes, you actually have the exclusive on this one.
Amazing.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. When do you think, how far are you through with it? Are you in early stages or?
I've actually got the entire thing written, but what I decided to do, instead of sending it out as a great big book, is that I'm going to make individual chapters their own book. And so it'll give people a time to really digest one subject at a time and delve into it. And so it's going to be what I call the Energetic Equestrian book series. And so I'm just now finishing and doing the final formatting on book 1, which is called Woven by Words. And it's about the power of storytelling with your horses.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah.
You've just mentioned that it's been 7 years since your first book and this new series. What have you discovered since writing Sacred Spaces? I mean, I know there's going to be a lot. We've only got a few hours. In terms of writing, is it, because you've obviously bringing work into more of a series, is that the primary thing that you kind of thought off the back of the last book? Actually, a series would be better suited to be more accessible to people, but also I guess that gives you more scope to write more too.
Yeah, and what I found is that sometimes when you have something in a big book, that you don't really integrate that really well, and you go off onto the next chapter and it's a new subject, and you haven't really studied that one thing in detail. And that's why I thought, as I was going through and trying to teach people different things, I always went back to let's say I call my clinics gatherings. I would go back to a gathering in another year, and I'd find that people hadn't studied or worked on some of the things. And they go, oh, I forgot that. Oh, that did work well. And so I'm going to try to really focus in on one topic at a time so somebody can get that information. And really, I started with, in this book series, not the most cool subject maybe for a lot of people, but it was one of the ones that will bring you some of the quickest results. And I started out, I have an online breath course, and that's really the foundation for everything I do. But then this is one that kind of, you don't have to have a lot of the energy skills and all of that stuff yet to be able to do the storytelling. So I thought that would be a good segue into, let's now expand this a little bit, start to work on your mental and emotional skill sets by storytelling. And then from that, you're going to already be ready for the next book in this series because you'll have some of those skills already in your awareness and your abilities. So that's the plan.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really like that. Yeah. It's so true because you do, you go to a clinic and you think at the time you're there, it's like, oh, this stuff is all amazing and I'm going to remember all of this. And then you get home and there's maybe a couple of things that really stick. But then all this other good stuff that you kind of lose because I guess there's only so much your brain can take on board in one go, isn't it? In that
Oh,
kind of, yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really lovely way of doing it, actually.
yeah. And I think, some of the things that I talk about and, other people that are talking about energy, and it's kind of a new subject. And so we don't have all those bridges between the old way and this new way. It's
Mm,
this big gap there. And so with your brain, it's hard for your brain to make that big leap without something tangible to hold on to or to relate to. So I
mm.
think that's been the problem with some of the things that I teach is they're too far over there in the left field to have people really be able to integrate them and comprehend them the way their brain needs to do. So I'm hoping this book series is that bridge that starts to happen where, oh, okay, I see how my old stuff was, and then I can put this in a little bit, and then it helps me start to navigate toward this other place. Uh, so there's some brain science behind this too, a little bit on the strategy.
I'm probably really happy in the left field, so I'm all down for that. But what I really liked about your first book was I felt that from my perspective was a really nice bridge between the two worlds. And I think it's really cool with books because they find you at the time you need to read them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you read a book for the first time, you will revisit it 6, 7 years later with a different lens,
Mm.
with a different experience. So you'll interpret it differently. So, but I thought at the time it was a really nice connection piece between the two.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that because I was hoping that it could be that type of bridge. But I also noticed that when people read Sacred Spaces, often they'll come to me and they'll say, "Well, I read it 4 or 5 times." I'm like, that's interesting. You read it 4 or 5 times. Good for you. Because what I did when I wrote that book, there were certain things at that time that you couldn't say
Mm.
without suicide to your career, essentially, if you were going to be out in the mainstream. So what I did was I wrote that book energetically so that I noticed that when people read it another time, they go to another energetic level of understanding in that book. And I think I wrote it on 5 or 6 different energetic levels. And what I did when I wrote it is, and how this works if you're out in left field, is that when I wrote those words, some people will just read those words. If you go deeper, infused in those words is more information. And if as you access that sacred space and you get into the field, the energy field, you access that other information from the book. So it may be deeper understanding, it may be other stories, it may be lots of different things. So uh, that that's how I write and why I will never use AI to write my words for me. is because they
Mm.
cannot put on those energetic experiences and that link to the energy field.
Rightly so. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Because you
absolutely.
have it's not a piece of you with AI.
Right, right. And you know as well as I do, we're working with these sentient beings who are very, very intelligent and very connected to the energy field. Why would we use AI? Why would we do an artificial? They're going to read right through that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some strange things going on in the world with all of that sort of stuff. I think at the moment it's yeah, it'd be interesting. Probably not in a good way to see where
Yeah.
it all goes. I think it's for things like books and culture and art and music, it takes the heart and soul out of it.
Oh, you're right, Amy.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, and we need that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking on I've gone down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. I'm just thinking about why someone would choose the AI route in the sense of feeling a disconnection between the words that themselves and the words that they write.
Yeah. I don't know either.
No, I guess it depends what you're trying to achieve, doesn't it?
Right. And
Yeah.
what I found disturbing, I guess, in that field was that when I went and did my breath course and I put in it asks you at the beginning, put in all the different things you want to talk about in this course. And then a couple minutes later, it popped up and goes, here's your course completed. It's all done. What do you think? And I'm mortified. I'm thinking,
Wow.
well, you said some things that are okay, but it was flat. It was like, there's
Yeah.
nothing, no life to this. It's just information. And it was really my first introduction into this AI world of creating courses and books and different things like that. And I thought, I'm never going to do that.
Mm.
I don't want to do that. And I can notice energy, and I'm sure at some level most people can notice
Yeah,
whether it's authentic or not.
definitely.
Uh,
I mean, I feel like you can tell reading something on social media very quickly whether it's the person that's written it or whether it's been written by AI.
yeah, yeah.
It, as you say, that it's the lack of soul in it somehow.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think for what I understand about you guys too is that we're not looking for superficial. We're looking for soul level
Mm.
connection with people, with horses, with other animals, and so there's no place in the world for that. I mean,
No,
some places it's helpful, but not in this arena right here.
no, not when you're looking for a genuine connection, whether that be person to person or person to animal.
Right.
Because
It's just, no.
you have a PhD in psychology, don't you, Susie?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I guess that adds a really interesting dynamic to the people that you come across in your line of work. So how is psychology the way for you to begin with, and how do you feel that has sort of led you to where you are now with that energetic opening? There are probably two questions in one there.
Well, I'll just ramble on, and then if
Go
I'm
for
not
it.
in anywhere near the question, then just stop me. Um, what happened was what I had gone the route of most people who, you go out and you learn to ride and you're doing all the technical aspects of riding and showing and doing different things like that. And then something happens in your life and there's an abrupt change and you've got to change course and do different things. And that happened to me. And I was no longer on the ranch doing my dream job. I was out in the world like, what am I going to do now? And do I want to be teaching just regular horsemanship, which is fine. But I kept thinking that there was something more. And And when you read the book, Sacred Spaces, my turning point was that show that I rode with Tank, when that story that I talked about with Tank. Because when I rode him at that show, I was not expecting to do well at all because I hadn't really ridden for a month and I was going through all this turmoil in my life. And so I went to that show with just the idea I already paid for the entry. I'm gonna go and I'm going to ride this horse one last time because I thought I would lose him actually in all the things that were happening. So I went to that show with a different perspective, and that was like, I'm just going to enjoy myself and I don't care. And I didn't have much gas in my tank either. In my tank, but Tank had the gas. And so I kind of sat on him in the warm up and we just went around a little bit. And I said, you know, Tank, now's the time to show ourselves what we're made of. And can we do this? And I said, you're going to have to help me today because I don't think I can do it. And he stepped up and in a big way. And I rode in the sacred space. It was the first time that I had ridden at a show, being in the sacred space, which is being in the flow in a really amazing space. And I thought, whoa, this is unreal. And it's so simple and it's so easy. And what was really fascinating to me is that nobody watches dressage really, but people would come and they would watch us and then they would leave. And I thought, they're not watching us because we're that great. They're watching us or they're sitting in the sacred space because it feels good. And it feels different than how other people are riding. And when I left that show, I left with that idea that that's what I want to teach people, how to find that space. Because once they go there, they never want to do something else with their horse. They never want to be in a different atmosphere with their horse. And so that was the gift that Tank gave to me was, no, don't go down the show route. That's not where your life is supposed to go. Come over here. And now when I got home, I thought, okay, if that's what I'm supposed to do, what's the best avenue to go down? What do I need to do? And I thought, well, psychology might help me out here. And so that's how it kind of transitioned into that. And actually for me, school was a bit of a place to hide, to recover, because it gave me something to do instead of focus on, oh, how sad my life is, right? I was accomplishing something and it was giving me a goal to work towards. But as you know, as anything happens in your life, if you're open to things, you go down different rabbit holes. And so, you know, I'd always been interested and been fascinated with energy and those different things since I was 12 years old. And those had been part of it. And I thought, well, somehow those mix in with psychology too. So how do I put all those together into this mix? And so I'm studying all these different things about how the brain works and trauma specifically, and infusing it with a lot of this ideas about energy and energy communication and all those different things like that. So I didn't tell my professors at the time because that was too far out there in left field for them. But it was in the back of my mind that this is going to help with that too, with an understanding of some of that. So in a long roundabout way, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. No, that certainly answered. I could literally sit and listen to you talk more, by the way. So it's all good.
Okay. Well,
ramble away.
ramble. It's so funny. I just have to do a little segue here. It's so funny that I ramble because as a child, I didn't speak. I didn't find any need. I didn't find any need to speak. I'm like, can't people just know what I'm thinking? Oh, well, they didn't.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So
So
now,
was there a turning point or?
when I had to have a job and speak in front of people,
Yeah.
when it's like, oh, you can't just hide away in your little
Yeah.
little comfortable world anymore.
Yeah.
You've got to use
Yeah.
some words.
Well, that's massively massively different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think that shaped your energetic accessibility?
The psychology part or the
With you being shy at school, do you think that made things more accessible? Because you come across that quite often.
Oh, I absolutely do. And I think that's really integral part of being intuitive is being able to be okay in your own body, being okay in really quiet spaces and find those comforting because only in the quiet are you going to access your intuition. And so I think that's why you see that a lot in people that are very introverted or like a lot of time alone is that oftentimes they're more intuitive because of that, because they're not
Mm.
constantly bombarded by other information coming in and having to process that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because generally, obviously, when you're younger or just as a generalization, there's always something going off, whether you're growing up through school and you're always doing something,
Yeah.
and then you might access later in life. I think it's really interesting the different life patterns that we follow or where we
Yeah.
end up and
And
how that
you know, if you,
manifests.
oh, didn't mean to
Oh no,
interrupt
no,
you.
go for it.
I was just thinking in sacred spaces, I talk about the different brain waves and that we try to work in that more alpha, slower brain waves. Well, that's one of the consequences of getting older is that you start out and you're producing a lot of theta and alpha brain waves when you're younger, which are the slower brain waves, more conducive to tapping into intuition and stuff. And then as we start to get indoctrinated into school and start being doers in the world, we switch to the beta, to higher brain waves, which cuts off a little bit of our intuition. So you'll find that children are far more intuitive than adults, like in a broad sense, like they're all like that. And then only a few of them retain those intuitive abilities into adulthood. And those are the ones that can go to access that space again and haven't forgotten it.
I think, yeah, that's interesting actually, because I think you and look at how things are in the modern world. So when I was growing up, we lived in the middle of the countryside and spent quite a lot of time making up imaginary games on my own. And, in my head, I had my little show jumping stable and I made jumps out in the back garden and all this, all of this kind of thing. Um, my poor mother with me knocking down all her nice flowers. But I think nowadays there's a lot less of that. Like, I wonder how that impacts.
Oh, I think it has a huge impact. Huge. If you look at the equestrians over time who have come out and really done more revolutionary things or
Mm,
they are deep thinkers about stuff. They come from a ranching background, a farming background, something that where when they were growing up, there was a lot of quiet time and a lot of time where somebody wasn't telling you what you were supposed to do, but you were
mm,
exploring and figuring things out and having very quiet time away from technology and all these other intrusions. And so you can look at a lot of these people that, do the more intuitive horsemanship, that's probably their background, that they
yeah,
grew
that's
up
a good
there.
point.
And I think it's harder, it's not impossible, but I think it's harder if you grew up in a very active environment, you know,
Mm,
that like a city or something. Yeah.
mm, yeah.
I love it how we're now
Mm.
all reflecting on this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because you say, at the beginning, a lot of people are from Colorado. There is something about Colorado. If you look at the number of people that have been doing this kind of work, there's a lot of them from Colorado.
Well,
And
it's funny you say that. Sorry to interrupt.
no.
So it's really funny you say that. So I was in Colorado last May, and I felt a massive shift energetically when I was there,
Mm.
and it followed me back.
Hmm.
And
Cool.
that was my first time visiting the state. But there was just something because I stayed up in Estes Park, but there was just something
Oh,
about that line of the Rockies which
mhm.
just had a different frequency to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, being an energetically sensitive person, the place that I live has to feel that. I have to feel that. And so I go around and I go, well, I can move somewhere. And then I think, it doesn't have the same feel energetically. Um,
Yeah. And
so
I
you're,
think that was one of the reasons that I asked you about your background in psychology. Linking back to what we were talking about earlier, me and Amy quite often talk about the disconnect that we're experiencing as humans at the moment and how profound that is. And it seems there seems to be very different groups going with the trajectory of, but then others that are having this recognition of going, actually, hold on, this isn't how we're supposed to live, either for themselves or having that recognition that actually something's wrong within the horsemanship with carrying on with this newer external influence. So my question is in your work and how you've explored that, how much do you come across that kind of disconnection of people from themselves?
oh, it's epidemic. And why I'm kind of glad I went into the psychology route, even though I don't think of when I go in and teach at a gathering, I don't think about trying to analyze a person. That's not the kind of psychology I
Mm.
want to do. But I'm seeing that disconnect, but it happens in their horse then. It's almost contagious then. Their horse is disconnected. So a lot of the things that I've done are kind of a backwards way of going about it. I try to get those disconnected people to reconnect to themselves through different exercises I do with them that they have to do with their horse. And so there's one thing I do, and maybe it's an exclusive. I've been doing this for many, many years. I have something I call the 4 questions that I ask horses when we go in, and it's really our foundational piece of when I start with the horse. But those questions are not just to ask the horse. Those are questions that the person reflects on for themselves. For example, one of the questions is, are your pieces connected? Meaning, do you have mind, body, soul connection? I'm going to ask that of the horse. I'm going to ask when the person, as they're asking their horse that question, reflect on yourself. Are you connected? Are you in your body? Okay, so everything I do as far as different techniques and exercises has something that the horse is working on, but in a kind of a silent way, the person is working on those exact same things, trying to reconnect. Because, Ross, you're right. I mean, the disconnect from with people from their bodies is epidemic. People are very connected from here up.
Mm.
They're in their intellectual mind all the time. They're trying to intellectualize everything, including intuition. I can find intuition if I intellectualize this enough. It's like, no, you're never going to find it there. You're never going to find it there. So hopefully what my goal is that I'm having the horses assist us in our evolution. Because we're devolving. We're not evolving, believe it or not. We're devolving. Um, and trying to keep us human so that we don't lose every aspect of our humanity through this technology, through that overthinking, through that disconnect from our physical bodies. Because our physical bodies have a lot of information that they're screaming at us and we're not listening and we're ignoring our body and all of our senses. And we're saying, no, this part up here works better. It doesn't. So that's really, it's really sad for me. And sometimes I wonder if there's hope. I don't want to sound like doomsday, but it's so prevalent. And I don't know if you guys find it in your country also, or
What do you
Yeah,
find
very much
for
so.
you, Amy?
that disconnect.
Yeah, very, very much so. I think, I mean, it's something that I've raised in conversations with people quite frequently, that I think we're so separated from our own innate needs as human beings, and our own true nature and our connection to the rest of the natural world. You know, you don't even have to look that far back in history to see how much more connected we were. And it's like, you know, this modern period that we're in, everything is accelerating so fast and we can't possibly keep up with it. And I feel like we're supposed to be small, closely connected communities, and yet suddenly we're bombarded with access to billions of people across the world. And that's not, you know, we're not wired up for that.
No.
And we can't keep up with it. And it's causing all these emotional problems. And it's amazing, you know, whenever someone says, oh, do you know what? I've had a break from social media for a month. I feel so much better. So it's not a difficult, in some ways, it's not a difficult thing to be able to identify, but actually then stepping away and making sense. But then, you know, if we can't see our own, can't look after our own needs as a human species, how do we then think that we're going to look after another species and recognize their innate needs? We can't. It's not possible. So it's like, as I love the way that you kind of bringing us and the horses together, because I think that's a beautiful way for both species to kind of connect to ourselves as humans, but for the horses to also gain that kind of freedom and horseness back. I think it's you know, it's such a beautiful way to be able to do that. So I think, you know, what you're doing is fabulous. And what I also loved is that for people who find maybe you know, trying to intellectualize the concept of some of these things, which, as you say, you can't do, but the fact that you're able to describe things with some science behind it, I think for people who think about things more in that way, because that certainly was me for a very long time, it's really useful, because it just takes you that next step, so that you can then start to move from having to intellectualize and see the scientific connection and so on, to actually then starting to feel things. And once you start feeling things, that's where it all suddenly, the magic happens, and it feels different. And yeah, so yeah, I think it's interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's important for people to have that science behind, and especially coming out and doing the work I do, I felt that was really necessary, other than being put in that category of, well, you're just a woo-woo person. And so we can really discount a lot of what you say because of, we put you in that category. But it's really hard to be put in that category when you can say, well, this is what the brain's doing, this is what the body's doing, this is what we could measure. And knowing that is great. And it sits in the back of my mind when I'm working with a horse. But in the forefront of my mind is that space where I'm just connecting with the horse. And I'm in present. And then say something happens or something comes up, and I can reach back in. I have an old Rolodex. I don't know if you guys remember Rolodex files.
Oh yes.
It's back there in the back of my head.
Yeah.
What's one of them?
Oh,
What's
Sorry,
a
I don't know.
Well, I'll explain here for the youngins. Back in the day, I remember having this in my office. It was a little thing that sat on your desk with little cards that had everybody's name on them and their phone number and all their contact information. So it was like a non-technical cell phone that had all your contacts in it, but you could flip through it, and it had, different A, B, C, D, whatever, and you could flip through your Rolodex file and then come up and pull out the person's name and their contact information. But it was a physical thing that sat on your desk that you had to like actually scroll through in the old way we scroll.
If we were to describe a filofax to you, it would blow your mind.
Right, okay, you've brought it up now. You're going to have to describe what one of those is because I don't know those either.
Oh, this was kind of like a filofax, but in a little, it was like a Rolodex, but in a little binder, and you had all sorts of other stuff in there as well. Like your whole, like it was like a paper version, book version of a phone.
Yes. That's a good way to explain it, Amy.
They were simpler times, Ross. They were simpler times.
I like simpler times, though.
You think you do until we give you a Rolodex. Then you go, well, takes so long. Anyway, we digress, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know where we were now. I lost track of our conversation.
It was having the Rolodex in the back of your mind. That's where we were at.
Right. Oh, yes. When I'm out working with a horse,
yes.
That I do my best to stay out of that technical part of my mind. And part of this is when you know something, it gives you confidence. Like, oh, I know there's a science behind this. Now I can go forward and just do this thing, knowing that it works and I don't have to question it. And I don't have to worry about all the specifics on it. And it makes us less mechanical in our interactions with the horses. And that's what I'm really looking for, that it's a flow state when I'm working with the horse and not, well, it's step 1, 2, 3. This is what my brain is saying, and this is what I have to do. And I will do it no matter what. And the horse will have to comply. And that's anything that I do. I don't have the 5 steps to a perfect horse. I have, well, here's some principles to work from, and which one should you use? So it's going to require that you think, which a lot of people don't want to do. They just want the list, like, give me the list and then I'll do it. No, this is like, here's a bunch of things that you could do. Which one do you think is appropriate? And you may try some and they don't work, and you go, well, I got another one. And really, when I go teach at a gathering, a horse may come up and I will try something and it doesn't work. But because I don't go by a list, I can go, well, what else would work? What else could I try? And then I go and try that next thing. If you're really stuck on there has to be a method and a system and the horse has to fit into it, you're never going to be able to adapt to what the horse's needs are. You're going to make the horse fit what you need it to do. And you're always going to end up with a problem later on in that kind of thinking.
We were having a really similar conversation a few weeks ago on methods and modalities, and effectively, expanding on what you've just said there, and that, I mean, it's not an approach that I have. I don't have methods. I have principles and values which guide the way that I work with the individuals within the context. But for me, it comes from that deeper space. And I think what's really cool about what you were saying there is that a lot of people, I think, are really excited for this kind of information and go, oh, I really want to kind of, adapt this into my own practice, regardless whether it's with horses or with people or with themselves, sorry. But I think all of this requires brain training and training ourselves. I think a lot of the time we go straight in and go, bam, this is what I'm going to do for the next X amount of times I work with my horse. But we go in with too high an expectation as opposed to creating those little micro habits, let's say.
You're absolutely right. And, some of the people who come to say my work, and they say, well, this is too hard. I don't want to do that. This means I got to work on this skill, mental, emotional, whatever skill. Well, I don't have time for that. And then it's like, well, then this isn't going to work for you. If this is not just I don't even think of it as a horse training method. I think of it as a human training. It's training ourselves to be different, to be more energetically aware, more aware of our bodies, more able to control our thoughts and emotions and decide which ones we want to have at the moment. And those skills, believe it or not, people mostly don't believe me. Those are the skills I worked on that transformed my horsemanship. It wasn't that I learned a new technique on how to make a horse do something. It was how I learned to control my own mind and my thoughts and my focus and my presence and all of those things that I talk about in sacred spaces. That's what transformed my horsemanship, me, working on me. Well, you may go, well, you still got a lot of work to do, but
We all do.
that's part of life. And this is in my program, it's like I talk about it, it's ever evolving, multidisciplinary approach. Yes, because we can't just think myopically. We have to think broadly. And then we're going to expand our horsemanship and our own life in the process. So
yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It does. It impacts the whole of everything. The way that you
I just
see
realized
things.
I'm giving a signal. You got this.
Very appropriate mug. Yeah.
The mug I chose for today.
And right, while we're all sharing, sorry for anyone who's listening, you don't have a visual on this.
Oh, Ross has got a mug that says "Believe in yourself." Oh, I feel disappointed to have a mug here.
Oh, those two go together so well.
They do. Shall we do a virtual clink?
Chin
There
chin.
you go. And believe it or not, you got this is what I tell the horses all the time. You got this. You can do it. You got this. Because I'm seeing horses that don't believe in themselves anymore.
Yeah.
And
I need to hear it.
people over controlling their horses and managing every bit of their lives. And it's like, I'm about, let's let this horse manage his life. And that's what I'm going to teach the horse, how to manage your life, how to regulate yourself. And that I can go and just have like that ride I had on Tank at the show. I can say, you know what, today you're going to have to take the wheel. And I can trust the horse is going to do it. That's the kind of horse I want to ride. Not one that it's like, well, I've got to make sure he keeps this shoulder up and that back in over there and this foot there and that. I don't ride like that. That's a horse's job. My job is me. My job is me and being balanced in myself. So whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, spiritual, energetic, all of those balances. Yeah.
They all work together. They all work together.
Yes,
None
absolutely.
of them exist in isolation.
Nope.
I mean, for you, how has practicing that energetic awareness transformed your work with horses? If you could give a summary on how that, because it's really cool. We have lots of different people listening to the podcast, some who are very much on this wavelength, some who are maybe still new, or some that haven't come across this before, which is all really cool. So what would you say to how it's transformed that for you?
I think my energetic awareness has made me a much better communicator because I'm communicating in the way a horse understands. I'm clearer. I'm more concise. I'm finding that I can just go in and think something, the horse does it. And I'm like, that is transformative. I mean, I even have, I'm talking in the terms of the energy, and I had a session, I'm just going to bring it up, yesterday on a Zoom call with a horse. And a lot of times people think, well, energy doesn't work on distance. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the distance is, right? Everybody that has looked into this. Well, I started this session and I was asking this horse some of my 4 questions. And at first, this horse was off. Often they do this, or off like, well, I'm just going to mess around over here in the round pen and eat some stuff over there. But I knew she was listening to me. And I was asking these questions about her breathing and if she had anything she needed to show or tell me. And I could see like I called it buffering. You could see in her mind, buffering. And I didn't get past like the second question before she came over, and then it was like she was in the camera insisting that she have her heart right next to where the phone was. And the girl's like, well, she keeps wanting to give you heart energy here. And it was like, that's so fascinating that, first of all, her face is right in the camera. And then she's doing all sorts of things. She shut the camera off for a little bit, and then we had to come back on. And then she kept wanting to be in that energy. And then she was saying, oh, I love this energy and I want to be next to it. So that energy awareness transcends physical space, and it's instantaneous. And what I find interesting is that there's so many programs out there about connection with your horse. And I remember one client, I've been on this connection journey for 8 months, and I was like, and it's not showing. Oh, and I didn't want to say, but it's like, no, if you do the energetic things that I talk about, connection and communion, like I was having with that horse, can happen within a few minutes or instantaneously, because now you are both in the field, the energy field, you're both communicating, you're both clear in the field. And that's the clarity of your energy is important. And you can now communicate instantly on a deep level through this energetic awareness and practicing these skills. And I can't emphasize enough that this is all this is where you need to start. All the other stuff is almost, some of the techniques that I found, I don't even need them anymore, because I'm clearly communicating with that horse. Not in the way we think of animal communication in general, like there's a bunch of words you're getting from the horse, or that. It's something different. It's a different form of communication that's soul level, that's body level, that's cellular level communication. That there's an understanding when all your cells are vibrating at a certain energy frequency and communicating something that you've said very specifically, I want you to communicate this way, body. And then it's instant understanding, instant connection. And I this sounds like a silly, sappy kind of, thing, but this is what we are as human beings. We are energetic beings. We have forgotten how to do this. And when we get back there, we're going to be amazed at what we can do as a human being, our capacity, our abilities. We don't even know what they are. And go ahead.
It's so natural.
Yeah. And I'm hoping, I see some of the younger generation coming in there, they're evolved. They're more evolved. And at the same time, they're more sensitive. So it's very hard for them to be in society and to adapt to the world that is existing out there right now. And so I don't know where things are going to go. This is where we get back to that thing that we were talking about originally. Where are we headed as humans? We're either headed toward turning over all of our abilities to a computer, to AI, and saying, hey, just control us or manage us. Or are we going to turn around and start to explore what we can actually do and who we actually are and explore that? And that's my part in life and why I went psychology way. And I'm, this energy thing is because I think we have more potential than we ever give ourselves credit for. And so do the horses.
I find it really cool that we're having this conversation now because I don't think there's any such thing as coincidences. I think everything happens at the right time as it's meant to present itself. And I was actually having a conversation with a client over the weekend, and they were asking me just about boundaries and a few self-care aspects. And I was saying that this year I'm making a few changes to how I work because the way that my work is taking me into a place where it's a lot deeper on a lot more of an intense level. And that, those few sentences might not sound like much, but for me, I reflected on that and found it quite a recognition for me myself in the sense that I'm allowing myself to go where I need to do the most good. And
Mm.
that isn't where I thought it would take me. And I'm quite pleased that at the point where I'm at, I've got the skill set that I have, which is nowhere near where hopefully it will be in 10 years' time because it's ever developing. But I'm just allowing myself to be taken the direction where I'm going to be needed as opposed to trying to go, well, no, I want to go down this route or I want to go down that route because I know from experience, and I'm sure we can all relate to the fact that you try and push in the wrong direction, you're swimming against tides, and you can either keep on pushing and exhaust yourself to try and get to that point, or go, huh, there's a reason for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as a younger person, this gives me hope for where we could go to, because that's what we need is people like you saying, yes, I'm going to be guided by something other than, let's see, monetary or fame or something else. And I'm going to follow what I feel like my soul is supposed to do, or how I'm supposed to be, or what work I'm supposed to do. And, for me, it's the same thing. I know marketers almost often come up and go, oh, I can expand your business. It's like, no, thank you.
Mm.
I'm on my path. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I'm not driven by those other needs right now. It's like my need is to produce something that's going to be helpful, that's going to leave a legacy, and that's going to help horses and humans both in the long term, long past the time that I'm gone. I don't need those other things. And that's something that I've noticed with this journey that I've been on. It's like I started out, well, this will be great, and I'll make lots of money, and you start in that thing, and then all of a sudden, doing this work, you fundamentally change, and you become a different human, and you go, well, why did I even think that was a good idea when this is really what I'm pursuing, and what I'm pursuing is peace of mind.
Mm.
And really what people are trying to get when they go different directions is they're trying to find peace of mind because they think it'll come when they get fame or they get money or attention or something like that. They think they'll find peace of mind there, when it's really over on this other side. When you follow your heart, you follow your soul, and you do the work that you're being guided to do, then you find peace of mind. And I
Mm.
think it's beautiful that you're the age you are and that you're finding
Thank you.
that space. Yeah.
And it's not easy.
Hmm.
This isn't meant to be easy.
No.
Not at all.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The other route is easy. This one
Hmm.
is not. But this one has far more rewards at the end, but they're not instant gratification. They're later. The
Yes.
gratification did I just say a weird word? Gratification comes later. Yeah.
Yeah. And it comes from a deeper level. And I think it's certainly something that I'm seeing in, I'll say in the bubble of how I work, because I think I'm definitely surrounded by a small group of people who are looking for the same thing and wanting to promote the same thing within horsemanship, horse training, horse care, welfare. So it's really lovely to have that sort of support network effectively within that professional side,
Hmm.
because you can see that there is a shift, and there is starting to become a little bit more of an open change, and it's really nice to be seeing that. And I think what's really interesting is that I think people are very quick to discount these aspects, regardless whether they have got the proof in front of them or not. But I think that is more about where they're at this point in time. And everyone's got to do the work to be able to get to that place, of course. And there's
Yeah.
never any judgment about how long that might take for someone. And
Right.
if you access the deeper stuff sooner, you can then build on top of that in a much, much better way. I always say I would rather have a horse that feels good about what they are doing together, as opposed to a horse that can do technical maneuvers, but there's a complete disconnect, and
Mm.
you see it show up in how the person applies. You see it show up. I mean, if you're sensitive, you can just walk into the room and see it, feel it.
Right. Right.
Um, but the horse will always show up in its body,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
regardless whether we feel it or not. So it's all,
Hmm.
like you say, it's all there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you say that because, that whole idea, and I think, why did I show? And it was such a superficial thing for me. It's like, here's someone judging something about you and your horse. And it's like, but that wasn't a place I needed to go to understand that that's not what I wanted.
Mm.
And I think I credit Tank for showing me, it's like, no, no, you thought it was this. And what was very interesting is he was quite talented horse. I got offered a lot of money for that horse, and that people would say, big time dressage people, oh, we could take this horse, to the Olympics. We could do, he's that caliber of horse. It's like, oh, no, no, you don't understand. He won't do that.
Mm.
He's not going to, yeah, he can do that, but he don't want to do that. And it's not in his best interest. And you'll turn him into a robot and he'll be unhappy. And so I brought him home after that show, and he was my trail horse. That's what he did after the show. And it was glorious because what he actually came here to do is say, here's a temptation. You could exploit this and use me and never see the depth of what I'm actually about and who I am and what I could teach you. And that's what was, again, if you don't go deep, you're never going to find those revelations, and you'll get superficial accolades or attention or whatever. But that, we get back to that, what does this work do? I would take heart energy given via Zoom from a horse as the greatest accolade and win that I ever could imagine. And it touched me at the deepest level, and it so did for that horse. And you can't take that experience away, that feeling of the real, true win, you might say,
Mm.
right? Like a ribbons meant nothing after a while. Yeah, well, here's another one. I got boxes full of them. So what? They don't carry that same energy as what that horse did yesterday with me. That will be forever in my memory and in my heart and in my body, in my energetic field. That connection. I don't remember half of the other things that I did with showing or ribbons or something like that. Those didn't mean anything. But, you know, everybody's on their journey about what do they want. And deep connection is scary and frightening for a lot of people. And it's frightening for a lot of horses too. You know, like this horse I work, you know, and I said she was avoiding me at first because she wasn't trusting that there was real in that. And when she found it out, she goes, yeah, that's it.
I'm thinking quite deeply on that one at the moment.
I thinking too, and just to kind of add to that, I think our horses are looking for that deep connection as much as we are. They're looking for something to connect to, and so many people don't have the ability to connect to themselves and then be able to be connected to by another being. And that's where I want to work, in that space of how do we become connectable? No?
Yeah.
Right?
Why do you think that might be? Why do you think that we have become so disconnectable? We've already kind of touched on like external influences, and obviously, you know, you can't really isolate the internal external side of things too much. But what do you think the main component of that would be? I mean, is that I think the more outside environmental noise there is, we become so easily distracted on multiple levels that when it comes to working through any kind of emotion that feels uncomfortable, we have something else as an option, and then we just push it deeper and deeper and deeper. And I know you've got quite a lot of specific interest in trauma, which manifests. I'm interested to hear how that shows up in your work. Again, two questions in one. That took me down a bit of a rabbit hole.
Actually, kind of not, because I think some of the, we're using that unconnectable thing, is really about the trauma that we hold. It's those barriers we've put up to protect ourselves that prevent someone else from connecting to us at a deep level or allowing somebody to connect. And so, you know, a lot of my work is when I start with a horse, and part of the questions that I'm going to ask them, part of those 4 questions, is an exploration of their trauma, and in a gentle way. So I don't take trauma from a horse. You know, there's a lot of people like, oh, I could take that trauma out of the horse. And it's like, oh, I would never take somebody's trauma out. That's not appropriate. What I could do is guide them to a place where they can decide whether or not they wanted to release that trauma or that memory from their body. But it also, when you release a trauma, there's got to be support in that horse's environment, person's environment, that doesn't bring that trauma back in. So things have to change. There has to be a support for being in and existing in a new way. So part of my, I mean, this is so hard because both people and horses come into this work with me often with their own traumas. Sometimes they're similar, sometimes they're not. And they're trying to communicate, but each of them have these barriers to communication and connection through that trauma piece. And so that's where I'm really trying to start at. It's that level. It's like, we have to have a conversation here with ourselves and with the horse. What do we need to work on? What is preventing us from being connectable? And, you know, the horses, for me, the release of trauma in horses is super easy and fast. They don't over intellectualize their trauma. They, you know, they don't have the the prefrontal cortex thing working like, well, maybe I might need that later, or I should use that for something. Maybe I'll get some attention or something like that. Horses are very clear in their trauma. It's like, well, I did have that thing, and then you told me I could let it go when I was ready, and let me think about that. Is my environment safe? Do I need that anymore? Oh, no, I think I could let that go. And they'll do that, and through this process that I do, and it's interesting to watch them go. You know, they have the buffering times where I'll ask them a question, and they're like, let me think on that. And you can see them like the wheels spinning, you know, and then they're like, and they're there waiting, and it's like, okay, let me wait and see what he comes up with. And then maybe they have a release of some type, and they go, well, that feels good to let that one go. But I also, you know, as I'm doing the trauma, I'll ask the horse, do you want to tell me what you got? And then all I need to do is acknowledge that I see it, that they showed me that place, and I say, oh yeah, I see that you're holding it right there. And I don't care what it is. I don't go into that. I just say, yes, I see that. I see what you got there, and you could let that go when you're ready. And I hold a safe space for them. And then they think about it. Well, maybe it's safe for me to let that go. And they do. And it's like, I build the connection one step at a time. As they release some of their trauma, they become more connectable. And so, you know, it's a very interesting process to watch a horse and be able to stand back and let them do their own work and not step in and say, you know what, I could fix that or make it happen faster for you. No, I don't do that. They have to decide. And the same thing with people. It's like, as they're going through this, they're going to watch that, and they're going to have empathy for another's struggles with their horse. But they're also going to reflect on, maybe I have some things and that I could let go of. And maybe there's some things I need to work with somebody else on in my life. Because I don't have time. I guess I don't want to phrase it wrong here. I don't spend the time in a gathering to deal with people's trauma, because I don't think it's an appropriate venue for that. I would never bring up somebody's trauma in front of a group of people, especially. But it may bring them awareness that, oh, I think I do have a block somewhere, or I'm holding trauma in my body, or I can't get rid of that. Maybe I need to go explore this with somebody that can help me with that. Because I think I'm a good trauma expert for horses. I'm a good horse psychologist and trauma expert. But that, I'm going to say, that's where I put my emphasis, is on the horse. Because I think there's far more qualified people to do it with people, with humans. So I'm going to let them do that thing. Because I don't want my practice to only be about human trauma. I want to move past that and get to the fun, you know, some more fun things in it.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question in some way.
It did. Yeah, thank you for that. And I think you mentioned safety there. And I think it's being able, especially with trauma, because of there being so many factors involved, and how it manifests and how it changes, how it changes the neurobiology effectively, all of those little components that come together. It's making sure it's applied in a trauma-informed way for the horse while holding that safe space. And you sound obviously very much like you've got all three nailed.
I've been at this a long time. Look at the color. Been at this a long time. And
I couldn't see that. I couldn't see that with
Oh.
just the background. It's so sunny, the light is blinding my eyes.
There we go. There we go. It's just sparkly. I became sparkly. That's what my friend used to say. Sparkly.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think in terms of the horsemanship, we can't ignore the effect of trauma on our horses and their ability to perform and do the things we ask them to do. And to get mad at them because they can't do something because of a trauma that they've experienced and then punish them for that, that's really tough on the horse and causes them to go into more of a dissociative state or just kind of going through the motions when you train them. I want that horse feeling good in his mind, in his body, in his soul. And then everything we do together is easier. You know, and always, like you say, being aware of, well, is that response really a big no, or is that response because the horse can't do it mentally, emotionally, and then physically, of course, because those are all connected. But I'm going to be exploring all of those reasons why the horse might say no or have resistance or have a behavior we don't like. I'm going to be exploring those to why is that really happening? Because my fundamental belief is that horses want to please us. They want to do what we're asking. They're either confused or they have trauma that prevents them from doing what we're asking sometimes. And so that's when you say, yes, I'm going to look at this horsemanship as a deeper level, not just go, well, just get over it and go on. Would you want that if you had PTSD? You can't just get over it and go on. It's going to affect your life. And it's going to make it impossible for you to do certain things. But if I can teach that horse management skills, self-management, self-regulation skills, they can start to manage their trauma and their stress in a very healthy way. And that's what I want, not through, the unhealthy ways that we get, like explosive behaviors and resistances and all those kind of things. We don't need to be dealing with those things. But to get them addressed, we need to go deep. So, I love when I see you buffering.
Yeah, plenty of that going on.
I know the brain is working. Yay!
There's one in there.
Funny.
Yeah. It's just reflecting on some of the horses that I know while you're talking, and it's yeah, I mean, I don't have your your skills at all, but I think sometimes I've found just by giving an environment where the horse can be a horse in amongst other horses, just that on its own seems to be so massively healing.
Right.
And you see some enormous changes in confidence and just general approach to life. I think, I mean, there's a horse that I have that is at my yard that came with a whole very difficult background, and I will never forget that when he first arrived, they live out together, but when I first bring a new horse in, I always keep them so that they can kind of talk over the fence, but they can't get in and get into a into a ruck. And I remember coming to the yard early one morning, and there's a bit where the fence is joined, and he was laid down flat, fast asleep. And my little herd of horses were all stood around the other side in like a semicircle around him. And it was just, and I think that was a bit of a transformative moment for him. I think from there, he was just like, oh, I'm okay here. And he's just gone from strength to strength from that point onwards, really, which has been really, really kind of magical to see.
Yeah. And, part of my PhD work was in how does social support help with dealing with stressful times or trauma and that kind of thing. And it's such a huge thing. And that's such a good example of he found his social support there. We hear you, we see you, we're going to hold space for you. And that's what people need too, is like more than here's how I'm going to fix you or you're going to fix this trauma is, can you have somebody that works with you that can hold a safe space, that can connect on that? And I think of all the things that I do and why I started with the breathing was I wanted a way for people to learn how to hold a sacred space for somebody else. And it takes practice, and it's easy once you get there and it just starts to happen. But that is so transformative and healing for others. And I don't know, if I've told this story before, but there was something about my mom, and she had a lot of her own trauma, but there was something that she could do that was so remarkable, that she could be sitting at the kitchen table and somebody could come in, whether she knew them before or they were just new, and they would sit at the table with her and she would talk with them. And they would leave that space going, God, I feel so good. And what I realized my mom could do was hold space, hold a sacred space for people to come in and feel safe and heard. And they left with a different outlook. And that's the thing they remembered about her. God, your mom could make me feel so good when I had a conversation with her. And it wasn't what the conversation was about. It was about that thing, that intangible thing, that ability to hold the space for that person. And that's what I want to do for my horses. That's why I called that book The Sacred Space. Sacred Spaces. And I remember when I put it out, there were a lot of people saying, well, nobody's going to find it because it doesn't say it's about horses. That title doesn't tell us it's about horses. I said, I don't care. The book will find who it's supposed to find. And that is the only title that's appropriate for what I do, Sacred Space. So it's super healing. And that's what we don't get from AI and we don't get from society. And if you can be a person that can hold a sacred space, it's going to change other people. I just felt like it's important. I want to tell this story because it's kind of on this same theme, but it has to do with people and holding a sacred space. So I had to get an Uber. Do you have Ubers in England?
We do.
Yeah, we have Ubers.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. So I was deciding I had to go for a 2-hour drive between two places in Arizona, and I'm like, I need kind of a quiet thing. And I was trying to look at all the different possibilities for that travel, and it came up like, should I face my fears and get an Uber? Oh, I don't know. I've never done it before, and I'm going through all this stuff. It's like, well, step out, girl, and get yourself an Uber. So I call up the Uber, and I'm like, oh, they come to the door and they'll drop me off where I need to be, and I'm all worried, but they show up on time. But the first Uber driver that shows up, he looks at me and he goes, well, I don't go to that place you need to go to. And I'm like, but that's what I ordered. It was like, and then I'm thinking, and then he just drives off. He didn't speak English very well, and I'm like, he's going,
wow.
I'm canceling this. And I'm like, no, wait. And he leaves. And I'm like, oh, great. Now I don't know how to get to my next place. So then, like you said, Ross, things happen for a reason. That was not the driver I was supposed to have. So what he had done is called another or put out the thing for another Uber driver. So this guy shows up and he's quite elderly man. And I'm like, okay, all right. Well, what a great driver he is. He's like really safe. And we had to take a detour, and then he's showing me all the places in town. It's like, oh, this used to be that. And so I got the historical tour. And so we started talking, and I asked him about his life, and he was telling me about all his family and what he did with his church and all these different things. So he was talking this whole time, and I'm like, this is a lovely conversation, and kind of not how I thought an Uber would go, but it's lovely. And so the whole time I just do the holding space thing, maybe like my mom could do, I don't know. So we get out of the Uber car at the destination, and he comes up to me and he's kind of very humble, and he goes, I have a question for you. And I go, what? He goes, could I give you a hug? And it was the most genuine, like heartfelt request. And I'm like, yeah. And I thought, wow, that's the power of the sacred space, and holding that space for somebody is that he felt it. And I don't think that's the normal Uber experience. If they wanted a hug, it might be a little creepy. It's like this was not at all creepy. This was such a genuine thing. And I thought, wow, that experience left me feeling really good. And I think he did too. So when I say those little things that we could do can be big. And the same thing with a horse. If you can learn to hold space for a horse, it's big.
That's a beautiful story. I love that.
My favorite story. See how you can have those things like they go into your soul, and you can't forget them. You'll never forget that experience because it was deep.
Yeah.
What do you want to see change in the world, Susie?
More deep. more deep people. More people seeking that deepness and finding themselves in the process. And really truly connecting with others, whether they're humans or horses. And that's what I wish for the world, and that I wish for the work that I do, is that we can truly see people at the soul level, not in the superficial level.
I could literally keep you for another 2 hours.
Yeah,
Well,
great.
this was so lovely, Ross and Amy. Thank you so much for
No,
reaching
it's
out.
been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah.
So before we ring off, your work, both Amy and I will most definitely agree, is such an important and much needed aspect. Where can people find your work or find you?
Well, they can't. I hide out. I kind of do. They can go to my website, and that's drsusanfay.com, just easy. And then I do have a Facebook group, and that's a private group, and it's called Sacred Spaces /Sacred Wisdom. So the Sacred Spaces is what we do, and the Sacred Wisdom is what the horse does. So they can go there and ask to join that Facebook group, or let's see, what else do I have? I have on my website, you can also sign up to get my energetic equestrian newsletter, and that's where I kind of keep people up to date on what's going on in my world as best I can. And it'll have links to different, like my breath course, or different things that you might want to do, like where am I going to be at a gathering and that kind of thing. You can find that in the newsletter. So those are the main ways you could contact me. And I stay off of social media as much as possible. It's kind of one of those things you like to do it because you can build a community, but it can get a little dicey. So I keep it down to, I think Facebook is the only one that I really want to participate in and not spread myself too thin or anything. So
Healthy, yes.
Yeah, I think we hear that.
Yes. For anyone looking for those links, they will be able to find them in the episode summary. So they'll all be there for anyone that wants to pop over, say hi, or look more into your work. But Susie, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Oh,
Yeah, it
thank
really
you
has.
both. This was just lovely. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm already looking forward to the first episode of your new series coming out. That's going to be really exciting.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
Do we have a
absolutely.
release date before we ring off?
No, because I'm in the process of just doing the final formatting. So, you know, you never can tell when that be. I would hope by the end of next month at the latest.
Oh, exciting. Imminently
So,
then. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
at least in terms of, a digital form of it or something like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll
Oh,
look forward to
fantastic.
that.
All right. Great.
Right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on another episode of the Little Horse Big Conversation podcast. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
However, before we leave you guys for another few weeks, we have a very special announcement. Both myself and Amy are very pleased to be hosting Susan for her first ever UK clinic in August 2027. It will also be her first visit overall to the UK, so let's make an impression. The dates for your diaries will be Friday the 27th, Saturday the 28th, and Sunday the 29th of August 2027. There will be a limited number of participant spaces as well as a very limited number of spectator spaces. Susan will also be available on Monday the 30th and Tuesday the 31st for private one-to-one lessons. So all details will come online over the next few weeks, and make sure you keep an eye out because this is definitely going to be one not to miss.